You're so ambitious. How do you continue to be an ambitious person, artist? And we talk about things like the Dove Awards. We talk about the accolades that we want from our career because we work hard for it.
Yeah.
But not make idol of those things.
You know, for me personally, what I can say is that the way that God has positioned me in my life has always required ambition. Things happened and kind of fell into my lap very early on as a little kid that required a certain sense of stick-to-itiveness and faith to carry. I feel like God allowed all of that on purpose. God is a big God, the biggest.
The biggest.
Creator of the universe. God is ambitious. We are his children made in his likeness. So I think that the line between ambition and like idolatry really is found in like your secret place, the time you're spending with the Lord, and really inviting the Holy Spirit into everything that you do so that you can self-check. Be like, wait, am I doing this for pride? Am I doing it for accolades? Or am I doing this to glorify the Lord? Am I doing this to honor him with the gifts he's given me? Am I doing this to reflect how big my God is and show people how dope my God is? That's the difference.
Yo, what's poppin', everybody? First and foremost, I want to say thank you to all my new and returning viewers of the J Hill podcast. But right now, this episode is sponsored by Tax Time Tony. Listen, it's officially tax season, and I know you ain't filed your taxes. Come on, what you waiting on? You waiting on Uncle Sam to run up in your pockets and take everything you worked hard for? You don't want to do that. All you got to do is holler at my guy, Tax Time Tony. Go to www.taxtimetony.com. He can get you on his books so you can file your taxes. Listen, he's maximizing refunds by minimizing the amount of taxes you got to pay. You don't want to wait, and he giving you $1 million in audit protection. Go to www.taxtimetony.com right now so you can get on his books and you can file your taxes. And he in his 4th year of business. And if you don't know something about businesses, most of them fail within 3 years. Why? Because their taxes ain't straight. So listen, if you either a 9-to-5er or you got your own business, you want to holler at my guy, Tax Time Tony. Again, that's www.taxtimetony.com. Make sure you holler at him. Let him know J Hill sent you. Let's get into this episode. Before we get started, I wanted to read something to you, and I wanted to see what you thought about this, right? So
okay.
I wanna know what's the first thing that come to mind when you read this, right?
Okay.
All right, so it says, one night I dreamed I was walking along the beach with the Lord. Scenes from my life flashed across the sky. In each, I noticed footprints in the sand. Sometimes there were 2 sets of footprints. Other times there was only one. During the low periods of my life, I could only see one set of footprints. The Lord replied, those times when you have seen only one set of footprints, my child, it was me when I carried you. What'd you think? What's the first thing that comes to mind? And I'll tell you mine.
So that just made my heart like beat fast. Just the way that I was interpreting it when you read it versus the way that it actually meant. So for me, when I was thinking of the one, like when the 2 footprints versus the one, I thought that you were going to say that when it was the one pair of footprints, that it was the time that like you chose to walk without the Lord, and like because of that and you walking without him, like that is why it was like the toughest time in your life. You know what I'm saying? Because that's my personal experience. But the way it actually ended up, it just really makes me think about just like the grace of the Lord and how nice he is. You know what I'm saying? That like he'll walk for you when you can't, you know? And it also makes me think about just like in prayer, right? Like how it's like when you don't have the words to even like get through the prayer, like tell God exactly what it is that you're needing or you're seeking. It's like him seeking your heart does the work for you, you know, and that.
You know, it's funny because that was my first thought when I read it.
Okay.
When I first read it, is a poem called Footprints in the Sand. And I thought the same exact thing. And when I was listening to your song GPS, your words sound so much like something I would say, right? So, and it reminded me of that, and I'll read it. I'm pretty sure you already know what it says, but for the audience, it says, "I've been running in place, and it's been a while now. I'm starting to wonder, where are you?
Yeah.
Could you show me your face? I need to be reminded. I need you to remind me what you planned. What you planned is what I'm working towards."
Yeah.
And like, as I'm listening to the song, I'm like, little do we know that I'm guiding you the whole way.
Yeah.
Right. So when you said, like, when I wasn't even thinking about the end. I didn't even think that way. I'm thinking like that's when you veered off on your own. And I'm listening to your song and I'm like, I'm listening to GPS and I'm like, this is how I feel sometimes.
Oh, wow.
But then sometimes, like oftentimes we're reminded that I was here the whole time. And I was wondering, like, what was you thinking when you wrote this song, GPS? It sounds so down to earth, and it sounds so like everyday, like you, like normal people, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
feel like sometimes we see Christians or Christian singers or actors or whatever the case may be, and we think they're like so much different than us when the whole time that we're going through some of the same things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love that. I love that you relate to it. And I love that you said it sounds so everyday, because that's my reality with the Lord, is like we walk every day with the Lord. You know what I'm saying? And he's there every day, even if you're not necessarily inviting him into your day and your plans, like he's there, you know, if you invite him in. And so with GPS, like, I really was in a place where I kind of was just like really creatively stifled. And I find myself in that place when I'm not as consistent in my time with the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Like, life be life in. Every day comes with new challenges and, you know, different, you know, goals. And you get kind of caught up in the distractions of life, especially in our society. Like, it's so fast paced now. There's so many different things vying for your attention. And I was trying to finish writing some songs and I couldn't. And then one day in the middle of the night, the Lord woke me up at like 3 a.m. and like literally gave me the melody. Do 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 do, like woke me up with that melody. And as I rolled over to, you know, do my little voice memo with the melody, he gave me the concept too. And it was just, take the first step, let me lead you the rest of the way. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of times we think that we have to, you know, when we set out to do something, we want to know what's on the other side of it, you know? But it's like the Lord just really calls us to take that first step and trust him, you know what I'm saying? Regardless of the outcome. And our society is also really results driven, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes like that's not the point. Like the point is just like taking the first step and trusting him to lead you the rest of the way every single day, no matter what it is that you're trying to get to the other side of, you know? So that's where the song came from.
I love that, because sometimes you have to be reminded that, like, just trust me. Right? That's why when I listen, I'm like, footprints in the sand. It's like you thought that you were by yourself. Oh, you thought that you were carrying it.
Right, you thought it was you.
You thought it was you?
Yeah.
Like, oh, let me show you something.
Yeah.
And that's what I get from most of your music, right? Teach me, like, when I'm listening, it sounds like a love letter almost to God. Right, and so many times in like just I guess your everyday, I don't know the exact terminology, but the everyday R&B or secular R&B is like a love letter to someone else.
Yeah.
When I hear your music, it's nothing short of great far as the quality, right, and how it's done, but it sounds like a love letter to God, right? So let's get this thing started. What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. J Hill. Welcome to another edition of the J Hill Podcast. It might look different in here for my everyday viewers because I wanted to be more intentional with these conversations. So when you being intentional, you talking about intentionality, we had to make it intentional. So I had to want to face my guests and talk directly in their eyes. This next guest I have, as you guys are already seen, I mean, she's been in the industry performing live in front of people since she's been like 8, right? Like 8, 9 years old. I mean, you're talking about doing Broadway, played young Nala, right? Young Nala in The Lion King. She then transitioned to R&B, pop R&B, right? At first, right? You started with pop R&B, then she made the transition to speak just to God and so many of us, right, that believe in God. I'm sorry if you don't, but I do. So I'm gonna talk to my people like, you believe in God, because I do. Originally from North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Moved to Atlanta. And I thought the story was nothing short than amazing. So I have an honor to bring to you Miss Lee Vasi. How you doing?
Hi.
Hello.
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for being here. You know, one thing that stood out as we talking about research and things like that is the dynamic between your parents and your career, the influence they had. I feel like I didn't quite understand. And I wanted to break it down further. I feel like on most cases I hear you say like they were a big support, right? But then other cases or like other interviews, I feel like it's something missing, right? Like you say, just let's go back to the time you had the audition for young Nyla in Lion King, right? And he was like, you know, my family always supported me, but then on the other side, it's like, well, you know, it was no real pressure because we just made it a shopping trip. So I'm trying to understand, like, what was the dynamic between your parents and their influence on the music and how they were there for you?
Yeah. Shout out my parents. They're the bomb. And have always been really supportive, right? Like that's really just the word if I had to sum it up. And they never pushed me into anything. You know what I'm saying? Like even with that, the trip that was what ultimately led to me, you know, being on Broadway at 9. You know, they're just like, okay, you want to give it a shot? Okay, we'll support you in giving it a shot. You know what I'm saying? But they were never stage parents. They never took it more seriously than I did. You know what I'm saying? Like they let me have my process and still let me be a kid, you know, in the process of trying to figure out what it was that God was really trying to do, you know, in and through my life, you know? So yeah, they, to this day, really just support wherever I am. Whether it's in my career, my mental health journey, you know, just my life, you know what I'm saying? So I've been really, really blessed to have them.
So when you say they support, because I guess when I look at support, I think of like a momager, right? Like I think of someone that's constantly there day and night. How did that support look then?
Yeah, no momager, no dadager. Like my parents literally to this day, like they will tell you like they never wanted to be my managers. They're not in the entertainment industry. You know what I'm saying? They just happened to have this child that, you know, couldn't shake it, you know, like I had to make it work out, you know? And so they were just there, you know, to take me to auditions, or like we spent literal years, like after The Lion King ended, getting on like whether it was driving like overnight to go do an audition in New York and, you know, have 15 minutes of being up there doing my audition, drive back 9.5 hours. I go to school the next day. Sometimes that was multiple times a week, you know what I'm saying, that we would do that. And then we transitioned to like taking a megabus. Like we were on a bus, like going back and forth to New York. So that's really where the support was, you know what I'm saying? It was never in like them pushing me or, you know, they were never developing me outside of really just like loving me, you know what I'm saying? And honoring the person that God was trying to, you know, make in me. So.
And that's what I mean when I say like, I wanted to have a deeper conversation. And I was asking you off camera, like, did you have the capacity to have this conversation? And he was like, yeah, sure. Right.
Yeah.
My question is, you know, I feel like as adults, I don't know how to explain this. I feel like as adults, right, we always are there to be like our biggest supporters of our parents, right? To always understand how they were. And you talk about therapy, like before you came back to Atlanta, and I had a similar experience where my therapist was talking to me about my parents or whatever, and they were like, how do you feel? And I never, like, as simple as that question is, I never really was able to explain it because I always say, yo, my mom's had my back forever. I love my mom's, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, no, but how do you feel? Like, even though you know she has your back, even though you know she was there, she did the best that she could, but how do you feel about that? And my question to you was, yeah, they were supportive and like they wasn't the momagers, but like it's so many instances where we see greats who parents were there every day. We talk about Beyonce, we talk about Michael Jackson, and they might have different stories now about their parents, but we seen what it did to their careers. And I was curious of wondering, like, did you wish they were a little more on you for the music or a little more like pushy or like that momager, dadager type of role?
No, because home always felt safe. Home didn't feel like I necessarily had to perform all the time. You know, my parents had high expectations of me, my siblings, you know what I'm saying? But it was mainly with like school, you know what I'm saying? Like my parents were like, okay, if you want to do this, you have to keep all A's. And I did, you know? And I liked them being my parents, you know? And I think what I also came to just really understand about is like, we all have our lane, you know what I'm saying? Like my parents are not managers, you know? They're my parents.
Right.
And so how I feel about them, you know, it's like when you're a kid, you don't always understand everything that your parents are doing. You know what I'm saying? Like what I can say is that I definitely didn't always understand, like, why can't I just like go to parties or like sleepovers or stuff like that, right? But then it's like when you grow up and you become an adult, you like, I don't want my kids going to sleepovers. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
So I've come to understand them a lot more, but I can't say that they didn't do anything that I needed or would want differently. I have great parents, and you know, they did the best they could with the tools that they had and more. You know, so
no, that's fine. Let's go back to like the beginning for a second, right?
okay.
So like you go to New York, you have this audition, you land the role of young Nyla in The Lion King on Broadway, and I don't think you talked about what made you like shift, like what like. Yeah, you were writing music, right? I think you wrote one of your songs in the beginning behind behind stage or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, what made you even jump into pop? Why pop? Like I didn't see that anywhere.
Yeah. So actually, growing up, I listened to every kind of genre of music, right? Like my mom is Puerto Rican Dominican, my dad is African American, my mom is from New York, my dad is from the South, you know? So I listened to so many different genres of music growing up, and always was kind of trying to find myself in it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like when I was a kid, I really studied a lot of artists like Neo, Mariah Carey, Selena, you know, and really just like found pieces of myself, and in their way of expressing themselves, I wanted to express myself too. You know what I'm saying? And so when I was a kid, I would watch like a lot of, you know, like the MTV, you know, E! News, like behind the scenes stuff, you know, and I was like learning that a lot of these artists that I really look up to are songwriters. And I was like, okay, so I got to write some songs, you know? And so when I was 10, for my 10th birthday, I asked for a guitar because I wanted to learn how to write songs on the guitar. And that was when I wrote my first song, and it was backstage at The Lion King. And actually someone in the show was actually giving me some tips on, you know, chords and, you know, different stuff like that. So I ended up recording my first song like on an Envy. Do you remember that phone, like the Verizon Envy? Like,
yeah, yep. The like a razor maybe.
It like opened up.
Yeah, yep. I remember.
Yeah, and I recorded it and I sent it around. Like I did like one of those like mass texts to people, and I was like, send this to people. You know, I was like 10. You know, like I was 10 doing this. And so by the time I was a teenager, I was like, you know what? I really want to do music. And I felt like music was the medium that I could most be myself and express myself and make my own sound. And so that was really kind of what made the decision for me to really focus on music. And I've always loved R&B. I've always loved pop music. I love salsa, I love bachata, like all of it, you know. And I've just always really wanted to be true to like my real lived experience of what I listen to, and figure out some kind of amalgamation of all of it to be my own artist. So
no, that's dope. And it's crazy because they say like history has a way of repeating itself all the time, right? And in doing my research, I found out that Heather Hadley, you know what that is? Of course you know, right? Yeah. So she actually played the original Young Nyla on Broadway. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, what are the odds? Because I'm like, how many artists did this, right? And I think she's one of the most like the biggest artist when it comes to R&B who did it. We've seen other artists like Brandy, who was already known in R&B and go to Broadway. People like Jennifer Hudson, she was already known in R&B, going to Broadway. Did you know that at the time? Like, did you see other like influence? Did you have an influence from like Heather Hadley and know that, well, she went from Broadway to R&B, I can do it as well? Did you know that?
Actually, yeah, I did. That's crazy that you just brought that up because Heather Headley was actually a huge inspiration to like me and my siblings. Okay. So we would like listen to the Aida soundtrack. She or cast album. She, you know, originated the role of Aida. She was Nala, of course, in The Lion King. So I grew up listening to her on these cast albums for shows that I really, really loved. You know, and my siblings and I would sing along, and we all had our 3-part harmony. It was real cute, you know. And so when Heather Headley started to release her music, it was huge for all of us, for me and my siblings, you know. And I'll never forget, like, In My Mind coming out, like that was my song, you know. And actually, she came to do a performance at a venue in Fayetteville, where I'm from in North Carolina. And my dad knew like the guy who was putting it together, whatever. So we got to meet her actually when I was like 8, maybe I met her. And that's a deep cut memory. That's crazy that you just brought that out of me. But yeah, she was a huge inspiration for me, for sure. And I've always wanted to be like a well-rounded, you know, performer, you know, and I've always been like a student of the craft. Like I really, really love it, you know? And so definitely looked up to people like her who were able to, just be in all of these different arenas of it.
Well, and speaking of being a student of the craft, like that's what made you even go to New York, right? To go to school for music and stuff like that, right? So, okay, what made you, like, when you say, I want to do music, is it a conversation that you're having with your parents, like, I want to go for school, I want to go to school for this, right? And again, like, you've been like Black, Dominican, just all of these things. Like, how does your parents take it? Like, okay, you can just go to school for music. Like, usually we hear, like, no, you have to be a doctor, lawyer, thing like that. It's like, nah, go to New York. How was it? Did they meet you with any friction or anything?
So no, because I had proof that I could figure it out. You know what I'm saying? So my parents were definitely on like the doctor lawyer thing until I got The Lion King, and then I was like, oh wait, like she might,
we might have a little star here.
Do this, you know. So by the time I was getting ready to go to school, I was like, honestly, I didn't know if I wanted to go to art school. I just knew I either wanted to end up in New York or Atlanta. Right. I was like, I just got to figure out which city is going to make sense. And I had actually done the high school program at NYU a couple years prior, and I was always just like, oh, like this program. It was so holistic. It was very like, music business, journalism, history, engineering, like all of it. And me being just kind of like, I'm like a little entertainment nerd. I was like, okay, this has to be kind of, my next step. And my parents didn't fight it at all because, they were like, all right, well, make it work, so.
So you go to New York. How did you get to Atlanta? I feel like you said this before, but I just don't remember. How did you get to Atlanta?
So I ended up in Atlanta. I did 2 years in New York. My life kind of fell apart. And I needed to, I kind of was like, I'm just going to start fresh, And I actually took like a year off in between New York and Atlanta. And I ended up in Atlanta like a year later, and it's my home now. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. So some things are going on in New York. Hold up. You're not a track star, are you?
So I ran track when I was a kid.
I'm joking. Like, not literally. Like, not literally.
My bad. I'm real literal.
It's fine. I'm joking because, like, it's the song. She said,
"Run to do the track star."
I asked that because it's like, wait, but because later on, some things was going on in Atlanta. You went back home.
Yeah.
So wait. What was going on in New York that made you go to Atlanta? Like, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, so I was kind of wilding out. I ended up in some situations that were just like not healthy. Some relationships that were really detrimental to me. And I was just like not well, you know what I'm saying? And the same thing happened in Atlanta, right? In different ways, right? And so I think that there was definitely a season of my life where I was a track star, right? Because I always thought it was like, oh, I got to get away from the place. And then like when I left Atlanta, after my first couple of years here, I really just had that moment of reckoning with the Lord and that silence, that like season of real isolation with me and God, and realizing like, okay, am I the drama? Like, and I like partially like, yeah, like I was the drama. To myself, to others, I went on like a whole, just era of like realizing like, wait, like it's not the place. It's like whatever you look for, you'll find. And that's in any place, that's in any season of your life, and I had to experience that in 2 different cities, you know what I'm saying, to really come to the understanding that like it has to be cool in here. You have to be good in here. Otherwise, everything externally is going to just be an echo of what's going on inside, So
what did you learn about yourself?
So I learned that I trusted people too quickly, right? I think that I always just thought people had good intentions, you know what I'm saying? And I also just kind of had some like people pleaser tendencies, you know what I'm saying? That would like get me into situations that I didn't really want to be in anyway. And then by the time I'm in it, I'm in the corner, I'm a fighter. So then I just start brawling, you know what I'm saying? Like, and this is metaphorically speaking. I kind of just started to become really, my initial like thinking everybody had good intentions for me became everybody has bad intentions for me. So I'm going to like make these situations bad, even if they're not. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't have discernment, you know? At the time, I didn't even know what discernment was. I didn't know what, you know, the language of that was, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, I mean, ultimately, like the core of all of it was that I didn't have a real relationship with the Lord, to where I knew that I could run to him, and that like he actually like listens to me and like cares for me and will give me insight. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to be out here on my own, like guessing about the world and guessing about people's intentions or guessing about my own intentions. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, so I really needed that season of isolation with him to get to know him for myself, and not necessarily what so many people had like told me about him, or, you know, yeah.
Before we even get to that understanding, right, of like the Lord, before we could just stay New York, Atlanta for a second, just for the people to understand the journey. It's crazy because even in like even post that, right, even like after finding the Lord, it's hard because like when you care for people, you want this, like you do. Well, I can speak for me. Like I do want to be like I feel like growing up, I was taught that like I only have my name and my word, right?
Yeah.
So right, so
I was
it's
raised like that too.
A part of people pleasing is, you know, like just you want people to see the good in you.
Yeah.
Right. And then I know me coming up, my mom used to always tell me, and the love and the order should be God, Jesus, then yourself. Right. But when we talk about people pleasing, sometimes or a lot of times we put ourselves last.
Yeah.
For other people, and then they don't do what we expect them to do, then it hurt. And it hurts our core, and things hurt because we have expectations for them, right? And when you said it, it resonated with me so well because it's like, I still go through that to this day. Like, I mean, I just was on the phone with my producer just saying like, you know, like, I'm always helping. Even when I can't, like even when I don't have it to help, I'm always helping. And then something goes wrong, and then it hurts me.
Yeah.
But I was telling him, like, you know, as much as I experienced that, I don't feel in my heart to not help. And I remember watching an interview with Mike Tyson, and he was talking to a guy, and the guy was saying, I'm summarizing, he was saying how he used to love a certain way, and he changed that because of everything that happened to him. And Mike Tyson said, "That's you let the devil win." And I said, "Wait, hold up. Like, what you mean?" He's like, because the devil is, his job is confusion, right? It's to confuse you. So like, if you are away, that's who you are. But the moment you change that, then you allow him to win. And I'm like, sheesh. So when you said that, like, you like, I'm helping people. And then I started to like, kind of like, you know, mess up the relationships.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't what I want. It was like, that was the devil working in that moment.
1000%.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
When you look back on them times now, like, what do you think?
Oh, I just want to give me a big old hug. Like that version of myself and of my life, I don't even identify with anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, it feels like a literal whole other life and whole other self. And I know that is because I have been like, I've had a radical encounter with Jesus, that like, that old life is dead, like for real. Like I understand what it means to be a new creation, because like who I was like a shell of who I am. You know what I'm saying? And I have so much more compassion for myself than I used to. I used to have no grace for myself, right? I was very, like, being a kid, like since I was a kid, I was always really focused. I was very hard on myself. I was very diligent. I wouldn't allow myself to like slip ever. And if I did, like, I was like, oh, well, there go your dreams. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was so dramatic. And so I think that as I like became a young adult and had to really figure out how to navigate like my 20s, you know, that same really just like mean self-talk just became a poison in my life, and it spewed out into every other area. And so I just really have so much compassion for that old version of myself, you know, and I'm just so glad that I've come out on the other side of it, because I used to think that there wasn't another side of it. Like, my mental health got so bad, gutter, like under the gutter, bad, you know? And, you know, I am proud of that version of myself for choosing to seek a different life. You know what I'm saying? Because it is a choice, right? It's like in life we have free will. Like you can sit there and you can rot, you know, and be a part of your own destruction, or you can like wake up every day and make small steps towards being better and being different and being new, you know? So, you know, when I reflect on just how down bad I was and how down bad I got, I'm just proud of myself that I made the choice to trust God to get me back up. You know what I'm saying? Because it definitely wasn't just me by myself that got back up, but I did have to make the choice.
No, that's great. And even when you, again, because all of this is in the music, right? So like when you say like you have so much grace for yourself, at one point in time you didn't. So again, we just being real, right? Like you were in New York, you said it was some relationship things. It was a lot of things that just was hard. And a lot of times we want to point the finger so much, and sometimes rightfully so we can. But however, I was taught every time you point a finger, you got 3 pointing back at you, right? So you got to look at yourself. So you talk about the grace thing, and I can only imagine because again, it's like it's so relatable. It's like I'm looking at me, but when you don't have grace with yourself, it's so hard to have grace with somebody else, right? And we talk about like self-love, and it's cliche for a reason because it matters. It's true. So when I hear that you didn't have grace, I can only imagine how it was for your partner. Right? And now that you have grace, I hear, teach me, right? I remember listening to this song and I'm like, I'm listening to the song. I swear I can't make this up. I'm listening to the song and I'm like, first thing I'm like, dang, I wish, I would love for a woman to pray for me like this, pray to understand me like this, right? And my second thought, because again, I am human, I'm like, are you ready for that?
Good question.
Because it's like, if someone is praying for you like this in front of you, do you accept that or do you reject it?
Ding, ding, ding.
And I'm like, but that comes from you having grace in yourself. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like when you making this song, teach me, were you going through that at the moment or was this something that you learned after?
Yeah, no, it was definitely in the moment, right? I'm in a relationship with an amazing, amazing man, a man of God who treats me well, right? I always say, I'm like, teach me is not just for any kind of man. You know what I'm saying? Like it's about a man that, you know, that is also submitted to God, that is also praying about you. You know what I'm saying? When you're going through hard times. And so, and good times, right? But so teach me really just came from a real place of like, I don't even remember what we were like arguing about, but we just weren't understanding each other. And I'm one of those people where I'm like, what do they call it? Like the emotional gangsters, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, I'm real sensitive, but like I get real kind of rah-rah, like when my feelings are hurt, you know what I'm saying?
A lot of us do.
Yeah. And so, but it's really just because I'm so sensitive.
My heart on my sleeves, like, you know?
Yeah, I'm hard on my sleeve. And I get like in pain, like when I feel misunderstood, you know? And so we had one of those moments and in our relationship, and we were like 6 months in at this point, so we were still kind of like trying to, you know, it's like the honeymoon phase started to pass a little bit, and we were like, okay, who is this person for real? Right. You know what I'm saying? So we're in that space. I'm praying about it, and I'm kind of praying that the Lord will like change him, this man. I'm like, he just needs to get it together. Like, I don't, right? But then like the Holy Spirit disciplined me in that prayer and redirected me to pray for understanding of this man, not that he necessarily be changed for like my selfish or honestly like ignorant needs too, right? Because it's like God made all of us very intentionally and on purpose, and there's clearly a reason why he was made the way he is and why I was made the way I am. So pray to understand why he is this way, right? And I came out of that prayer and just like the song just kind of like flowed out from there. And yeah, I wrote it in like 20 minutes maybe. And it's been really, really cool to see the way that like the Lord has used such a real, raw, personal experience that I was having to kind of live in people's lives and in the way that they need to, you know? So
and did you find understanding from that?
I did.
Was it immediate or how long did it take, do you think?
So I think that the understanding really came or comes from a heart posture, right? It's not so much about like, oh, like you got the answer. Sometimes it is one answer, right? But then sometimes it's like a process when the Lord is really trying to like do something, you know, in you, it's not always immediate, right? And so I think that my understanding that I was asking for came back on me, right? It's like, how are you contributing to this, right? Are you loving in the way that we're instructed to love? Are you being patient? Are you being kind?
Are you not being boastful?
Are you being boastful, arrogant, rude, like, you know, and like I can be rude, like, you know, it's a process, you know, it's like
you got some Dominican,
look, I'm a human, man. Like I'm a person and I've been through some things.
Y'all know about, but
you know what I'm saying? Like, don't do me, right? But it's like, I've been through some stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, are you responding out of trauma? Like, are you talking to this person like from a place of fear? You know, that's not a fruit of the spirit. You know what I'm saying? So, I think the understanding has been a process that to this day, like it's ongoing. You know what I'm saying? We're on a journey. I don't know who I was watching, but there's this sermon I was watching where they were like, notice that whenever there was a miracle in the Bible, and it was like an instant healing, that was in the physical. Right? Like physical healings could be immediate, right? And that's what we see kind of a pattern of. But it's like whenever God was changing somebody from the inside out, it's a process.
It took some time.
You know? And so I'm still on my process. I'm always gonna be on my process, you know? But definitely I've come to a place of more understanding because I'm submitted to the process.
No, facts. They say healing is not like a destination, right? It's a journey.
Yeah.
So it's never like it never looks one way. Yeah, it's crazy having this conversation. Again, I kind of want to go back, right, to now, not even New York. We understand New York, Atlanta. Okay. And I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna play a little game, right? I'm gonna tell you what I thought, and I need you to tell me the reality of it, right?
Okay.
So, again, I'm not sure. I know you say you go to Atlanta, pandemic hit, it's like, okay, I gotta go back home. But I'm like, why? Right? And I'm just thinking like, okay, 9-year-old, casted on Broadway, young Nyla, have success. But in my mind, it's like you go to Atlanta. Well, first of all, you go to New York, right? To go to school for music. You go to Atlanta, I'm assuming, to chase your music dreams.
Yeah.
And it's to me, it's like this is someone who's clearly serious about music, but it seems like maybe she thinks it's just not working out. What is the reality of that? Because that's in my mind, that's what I hear. That's what I'm like, maybe it's just not clicking. Pandemic happened. Like you got all these big dreams and it's just like, it's not working. Oh, I'm done with this. Like, what's the reality?
That's the reality. It wasn't working out. I was broke. I couldn't pay my bills. You know, like I had to go back home. Yeah. And then like on top of that, you know, I was really struggling to like find peace just generally in my life. You know what I'm saying? And I think that growing up, I had this dream that like I would like my life when I achieve the levels of success that I want, you know? And so really, I like idolized success for a large part of my life and a large part of my childhood because God had given me visions from a young age of what my life would look like. So I was always trying to figure out, how am I going to get to this vision? You know what I'm saying? Because some of those things, I would see them come to pass. And then there would be like years of like, what is going on? You know? And I was just really unhappy. I just like, I hated my life. I hated myself. I hated the situations I was finding myself in. I didn't even recognize myself. And I was broke, right? And I was trying to hustle, you know, and then the pandemic slowed my hustle, you know, and as a songwriter, and I just was like, all right, I got to go home.
It's crazy because again, even then, I'm like, the pandemic for most, well, not most. Okay, one, let me slow down. We lost a lot of people during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And that was unfortunate, but I feel like it was another side of that where so many entrepreneurs flourished, right? So when I'm hearing your story, I'm like, wait, what's going on? Because I know in my mind, I'm like, I was struggling before the pandemic. Again, I'm sorry, but I'm just being the reality of mine. I'm like, okay, pandemic hit, it's up now.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, what was really going on that made you say, man, I can't take this no more?
Yeah, I mean, I was suffering, like internally, like I was so down on myself. That goes back to the no grace, right? It's like, I can't figure out how to make this work. I'm 22. Like, it's never going to work. Like, you know, I thought I was going to be here or here when I was 19 or 16, you know what I'm saying? And so I was like, this is, you know, my mental health was shot. I didn't have any fight left in me. You know what I'm saying? And I had to just like kind of admit defeat, you know? And there was so much spiritual warfare going on at that time that I just really didn't have the tools. I didn't have I was so depleted. My soul was so depleted. And I just kind of had to wave a white flag. You know what I'm saying?
That's so interesting because like you're 22, right? And at that age, we think we know it all.
Yeah.
And for you to say like, you know, I just like in my mind, for you to say I'm defeated at 22, that means a lot. It had to be rough.
I was gone. I was like gone from myself.
So is that when you kind of like, I guess, reintroduce yourself to God or still not yet?
Yeah. So what's interesting is like through all of my journey, like I would always, like I'd go pick up the Bible, be like, maybe I'll flip it to a page and it's gonna be something in there. Right. But it wasn't consistent. And there was also just like a lot of different warring mindsets and behaviors I was doing. It's like I was not walking in the way of the Lord. So obviously like you reading the Bible like for 2 minutes a day, you know what I'm saying, in the middle of you doing all this other stuff, like it's not gonna like just magically change your life, dog. So I always knew like, okay, run to the Lord, like, you know, do it for real this time. But then I would, you know, fall off and, you know, wasn't around godly community, wasn't around people who, you know, were encouraging me really in that way. And so I really think ultimately it's like God allowed it all to happen for me to be redirected. You know what I'm saying? And I needed to be quiet for a season for me to really hear him, you know? And it was tough for me to have to make that decision and felt like a failure. And, you know,
I can only imagine.
Because like you said, at 22, you feel like I'm grown. I got to figure
I'm not going back home. Like, I don't need them. Like, I'm going to show them. I'm going to prove to them.
Bruh, wrong. Like, I needed my mommy, bro. And thank God I had a home to go back to where nobody made me feel bad about it. They were just there to embrace me and love me. And, you know, God really encountered me during that time. So ultimately, I'm so grateful for the journey that it's been, but it did get rough. Like it got really, really painful. And I did not think I was going to make it out, but
now
God.
we're here, right?
Yeah.
You're doing all these interviews and
it's
double
nuts.
wars, going viral. It's crazy, right? It's up and it's stuck, literally.
It's crazy.
Yo, so, because I asked you this before and you said it's a heart posture, like when you hear God. But sometimes you do hear his voice. And I'm, for somebody who's still finding God and I'm still building my relationship with God and so many others that might be watching, right? It was a time where you actually heard him, right? Because you went to North Carolina and you came back and God's like music and you like, bro, what? Like, no. He like music. You like, no. Like, music. Like, how did you know that was God though? Like, how do you know when it's God and how are you able to like hear this? I don't know, voice or what is it exactly?
Really good question. So when I went back to North Carolina, I got my real estate license. And that was a whole other like spiritual journey. But
so Lee was out here selling houses.
Yeah.
Like,
I sold houses for like 8 months, maybe. Because I didn't like it, you know what I'm saying? But I did it, right? I did it because I was like, okay, I'm leaving entertainment. Like I got to figure something out. And so I got my real estate license and failed the test a lot of times before I actually got it. And I was like, this doesn't happen to me. Like, why do I keep failing? But that was a whole like test in building endurance in itself, right? But so I got my real estate license and, you know, was finally like, okay, I had some money, I can pay my bills, like I'm stable, right? Like my mental health is kind of balancing out. And I went and I told my dad one day, I was like, you know, I'm in the most like stable place I've ever been, right? In all these areas, financially, mental health, right? But I'm the most lost I've ever been. And he was like, you know, I had to let you go through your process. And, you know, because can't nobody really tell me nothing, right? So my dad was like, I had to let you go through your process, but I thought you gave up on music too abruptly. Like, I don't think you were supposed to stop doing music. And I was like, oh, Dad, like, I can't do it, you know? And he was like, just sing. Because I went back to North Carolina. I wasn't even singing to myself. I wasn't listening to music in the car. Like, it was quiet. And he was like, you still have your equipment. Just go, like, you know, go record some ideas, you know, just start getting your feet wet again. You know, he was like, nobody does what you did for as long as you did it without absolutely loving it. And you just like cut off something that you love, you know, and that's why you're lost. Right. And I was like, dang, he might be right. And so that kind of planted the seed for me to think about doing music again. But I was still in that era of really like just quiet with the Lord, and didn't know what that would look like for me to do music again. And so, I ended up just like I called like some of my friends. That's what happened. I called some of my like friends, like my music friends, and some people just ended up calling me, right? It's like Atlanta kept kind of like calling me back, you know, during that time. And I was like, dang, like, am I supposed to move back to Atlanta? I always wanted to move back to Atlanta, but then I was like, maybe not, you know? And I ended up like getting another job and was thinking about maybe moving to Charlotte and all kind of stuff. And then I ended up getting an opportunity to move back to Atlanta. And the night before I moved back, I'm just like, it's, again, quiet. I feel like I keep saying quiet, but that was what it was. My world was very, very quiet at the time. And I'm sitting in my bed, just like weeping tears of joy for like the way that the Lord has like healed me, you know, in so many ways during that time. And I asked him out loud, God, what do you have for me when I move back to Atlanta? And like that was the first time I think I really felt the Holy Spirit redirect me in prayer. And I felt redirected because that question was kind of like more like self serving. The question that I was redirected to ask was, what do you need from me when I get back to Atlanta? And like a movie, I heard the voice of the Lord and felt the presence of the Lord on my left side, like laying there in the bed in the dark, crying. And I heard the Lord say music. And I trembled, right? Because I'd never heard the Lord that clearly. Like there was no mistaking it, right? And I was like, so I was shook from the encounter. And then I was shook because I was like, but what, how? You know what I'm saying? Like, I've given my life to you. I don't want to go back to like doing what I was doing. I don't want to be the old me. I don't want to go to the hookah lounges no more. You know, I was like, how do I do this? You know? And that was really like something I just had to trust him with. And then within 2 weeks of me being back here, it all made sense. I started getting exposed to like the really dope things that are happening in the CHH space in Atlanta, you know, and it's just kind of been, that was my reintroduction to music.
Yo, wait, this is a great space to be in. Hold up. So I know, even when we know the Lord, right? When we reintroduced, and it's like when you get introduced to the Lord a different way, it's like, I feel like it's stages of being saved, right?
Yes.
And I think I talked about this with Lecrae actually. And one of those stages is the beginning stage where like you're super excited about the Lord and you want to tell everybody, right? But that can be weird to like the people around you.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, even when you go back home, because you from here, right? So I'm pretty sure you know people here. They know you as like, this is Lee. Like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Even when you come back to Atlanta, people know you from who they thought you were, or who you were, right?
Yes.
How is those relationships now that you have this deeper understanding and this closer relationship and bond with God? Like, how was it navigating in those spaces though?
Yeah, good question. What I'll say is that God has always done really good at pruning people out of my life for me. You know what I'm saying? People I've wanted to hold on to, God just be like, nope. You know what I'm saying? So actually, when I moved back, it wasn't a whole lot of mess. You know what I'm saying? Like, and when, like, there were some people that kind of tried to come back in but now I had discernment and now I was on assignment and now I was like tapped in with the Lord. I was like, I'm not even going to entertain that anymore. You know what I'm saying? And then there were other people, like my man, who
okay, my man.
who knew me before, and then, but he's been a man of God, you know what I'm saying? And it's like he used to, he saw me at my worst, you know what I'm saying? And so when I came back to Atlanta, he embraced me and was like, yeah, like, you know, and really, really, really kind of showed me a whole new version of Atlanta. So, yeah.
That's dope. You know, it's funny. So when you I just thought about this. Like you were talking about you sitting on your bed, right? Talking to God, like, yo, like, what you need me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what do I need? You know, and then you get redirected. Like, what do you need from me, right? And like that's your first time hearing it. And it reminded me of this because it's so different in the way of not just how you heard him, but in what we're used to, right? So, all right, this is I don't even know why I looked this up, right? But so when we talk about like your culture and your heritage, right, and making music, when it comes to like Puerto Rican, Dominican, and African American descent people that do music, like you have like Cardi B, Dave East, Lloyd, Melly, Fabulous, so many other more, right? Like, so it's just, this isn't like new.
Yeah.
But what is new, from my understanding, is I think like you're like one of the first ones of the descent to do a gospel music. And I'm like, was it ever any pressure there? Like, well, because you see people doing the music, and it's like, well, I mean, this works. Again, like when you're doing Broadway, you see Heather Hadley, who did that before, so like I can do that.
Yeah,
right?
like like
was it any pressure?
trajectory.
Like, yo, like these people do it, like why not me? I can't do it like that.
Yeah.
Did you feel that at all? Did you
Do
even
it
know
like
that?
what?
Like I can still do it my way, right? Like I heard God, but I still can do it my way.
Yeah.
I can because it works.
Yeah.
And I can if I just follow the pattern, it can work for me too.
Yeah. So, you know,
did you ever even think about that?
I did.
Oh wow.
Right? Because when I heard God tell me to like do music, right? I was like, okay, so I'm doing music for God. What does that sound like? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, God made me an artist, right? God made me a creative, and God gave me all of the cultural exposure that I have for a reason, right? And I didn't know like how I could do music for God. And honestly, that was a part of why I like didn't. So when I was like 12, when we were in church, and like I felt like in my 12-year-old body, I was like, I feel like God like wants me to do music for him. You know what I'm saying? But I kind of rejected that thought because I was like, there's no way, because I won't be able to, you know,
do it my way.
Do it the way that like I feel creative and like happy, you know? And because by that time I was already like, I'm gonna do bilingual pop R&B. Like I was always set on it from the time I was a kid. And so I was like, how do I do this like for God, you know? And I think that I was really blessed. I've been really blessed to be able to, you know, have experience as an independent artist. And it's like, I can put it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to wait for anybody to like get it or, you know, kind of co-sign. It's like, I can put it out and I can work it, and I can, you know, interact on and engage on social media in a way that's like real for me and authentic for me. And the people who this is for, they're going to find it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what my prayer has always been to this day, is like, Lord, whoever needs to hear this, let them hear it. You know, everybody isn't for everybody. You know what I'm saying? So I think right now, I try not to focus on like, will, you know, this fit into any boxes, or, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't fit into any boxes. So it's impossible for me to put my expression into a box in that way. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like God did that on purpose. I think God did that really intentionally for my life. So I'm really passionate about fighting for that vision. You know what I'm saying? That God's put in me as a creative.
That's another thing that I didn't quite understand. It's because it sounds like the music you do, it doesn't sound like it just came overnight. It's not like you've been doing this type of music because it sounds good, right? But again, in my mind, I'm like, all right, because I can't find none of the pop music. Maybe I didn't look hard enough, but can't find none of the pop music. And even like on American Idol, because you was doing American Idol, right?
I did.
I don't think you performed a gospel song.
No.
Right. So it's like, even then, so in my mind, I'm like, okay, she did pop music, but now this is a more, I don't know, traditional R&B for the Lord. And I'm like, yeah, how did that transition go? Like, how did that happen? Like, did you know you could sing this well and because it's a different cadence. When I hear pop, I hear like 90s pop, like the kids fun, the kids pop. It's like, turned up. And when I listen to your R&B now or your music now for God, it sounds like a love letter to God. It sounds so. It doesn't sound hard to listen to because I feel like I've heard this music in other ways before. So in my mind, I'm like, yo, like, did you have help with this? Like, how was that transition from like this pop music to like this traditional R&B for God?
Well, I'm a songwriter. Like, I write all my music. And when I, moved to Atlanta, that was part of my hustle, I was trying to figure out how to get in rooms, writing across different genres. And, like I said, I'm a real music nerd. I study music history. Like, I really love I love music history, and I love the way that like the sounds of the time really serve as like a marker of what was happening culturally and creatively and historically. And so I think that I've always loved R&B music. I've always loved pop music. I've always loved Latin music. And anything that comes out is just like coming from that real place of like what I like, you know what I'm saying? And what I'm going through at the time, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, the songs that are on my EP. And I love that you keep saying it sounds like a love letter to God, because that's kind of what it is. Like when he told me to do music again, I didn't have an audience. I had 28 monthly listeners on Spotify. Like, I was like
hitting like over 100,000.
Yeah, like I don't, and I didn't have an audience. I didn't have an idea of like, who I'm writing for, who this is for. I'm just writing it to God. And that's where my EP From Me to God came from, was that real place. And actually the first song I wrote in like 2 years was the song Liberate Me, which is like kind of like a Latin R&B bilingual kind of, journey of a song. And, everything else came after Liberate Me. And so I'm really just like, I really just love to be creative, and wherever I am, whatever I'm feeling, that's the music that comes out at that time,
Okay, so we got to hit this, right? Like you come here, you having success, right? Doing music for God, and it's going great. Going viral, it's lit, right? It's up and it's stuck, literally, right?
Yeah.
But you and I both know that some of the most hard people to please are Christian people. Did you ever run into some friction with it still ain't enough? Like, because we know, like, it's like, it sounds like secular music, so it is. Like, did you run into that friction with other Christians of them saying you shouldn't be doing this, even though you say it's for God, it's not for God? Did you run into that at all?
Yeah. And that's, that you could read comments, I think every Christian artist, especially people who aren't in, like traditional gospel or, worship music, we all kind of get a version of that. You know what I'm saying? But I have my relationship with the Lord, you know what I'm saying? And my music comes from that real place with him. So, I have to say there's a lot more positive than there is negative. But yeah, to your question, that exists.
Did that ever like discourage you from making the music at all? Or did the good just outweigh the bad so much?
I wouldn't say it discouraged me from making the music. But I've thought about it, right? Like I think about those kinds of comments. I really want to honor the Lord with my life. You know what I'm saying? And I understand that it's a part of our faith to kind of like hold each other accountable, you know what I'm saying, in a way. But I think that it's also important to, understand that we don't understand everybody's assignment in the Lord either. You know what I'm saying? And we're all called to do different things and in different ways. And, God, we're all image bearers of the Lord, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like God gave us human difference, and God gave us culture, and God gave us different experiences with him to like reach different people for him. You know what I'm saying? So I just really lean into that, and I definitely pray a lot about, wanting to steward my gifts well, wanting to steward, the responsibility that I've been given in him well. So yeah, it's
a lot.
It's real.
It's crazy because like even now, I don't make podcasts, music. I mean, you see Liquor right there. I'm very much so a human and flawed, right? And
Yeah.
a sinner. But I do have a relationship with God, and sometimes it get heavy for me, like just wanting to be just perfect in the eyes of God, right? Just being honest.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about you, and as I listen to you, and I'm like, man, I wonder, like, does it ever get heavy? Like, just knowing that you're making this music for God, you look in a certain way, but you're still human, right? We're still flawed individuals. Like, does that ever weigh heavy on you?
Man, you got me on the right week. 'Cause yes, right, it does. But that, I think that it gets heaviest when I'm when I'm really focusing in my humanity of it, right? Like Jesus tells you that his yoke is light, you know what I'm saying? So like take Jesus, you know what I'm saying, to carry your burdens. And I really just have to remind myself of that, because I really want God to be pleased with me, you know, and I really want God to say I ran the race well, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not perfect. I literally say and teach me, Lord, I know I'm not perfect, because I'm not. I never will be, right? And I think that's something that's really important to remember, you know, for all of us, whether you're kind of have some kind of influence in the Christian space or just in life as a person, right? It's like God is merciful. God is a God of grace, right? It's like, are there certain things we have to do to seek a righteous life and live holy for him? Yeah, but that's because that's out of love for him. You know what I'm saying? Because he loves us so much. So I think that it does get heavy some days, and I just have to just hold to that truth. You know what I'm saying? That you know, it's not, none of it is about me. You know what I'm saying? Like, none of it is about you. Everything is about him, you know, and he wants to hold you through it so that it's not heavy. It's like that poem you were saying, right? Where it's like, you know, you're walking with him, and then like at some point he just picks you up because he knows it's heavy for you, but nothing is too heavy for him, you know? So,
you know what else helps me stay grounded is the understanding of how it all works. And just understanding that we are here on earth because of our sins in heaven. So it's a lot of times things get hard on earth, but if it gets hard on earth, and this might sound crazy, but just bear with me. In my mind, it's like, if it gets hard on earth and it hurts that much, it means you've been too comfortable being here and you lost your way with God. And I say that because it's all supposed to be hard. Like, we're here because this is hell, right? Like, we're here because of our sins. Our goal here is really to make it back to the kingdom of heaven, right? And have this eternal life, right? We're talking about Christians. So like, if it ever gets that hard where it's so overwhelming to you, then you've got too used to the life you're not even supposed to be used to anyway, if that makes sense.
That's an interesting take. I feel like also though, it's like being Christian is not soft life, right? It's like we like actually are, like, we know as a Christian you will suffer. You know what I'm saying? Like, God is not a genie. Like, actually, like, you will suffer. That is like, that's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And I think that you know, it's tough when you're in those times of you know, this is really hard. Sometimes it's like it's supposed to happen to you, right? But like, all of the Lord's plans for you are for your good, and that's so hard to wrap our head around when we're struggling, right? Like, for me personally, in my journey, I know the Lord allowed those seasons of suffering for me, right? One, to build up my empathy bone, right? Not only for myself, but for others, right? I needed to know what it really felt like to suffer and to struggle, to be able to like serve people and to like be humble. You know what I'm saying? He used all of it for my good, all of my sinful nature, all of my, you know, rebellion and like deviance from his word. Like, he used all of it for my good, for his glory. And I feel like it's like in our humanity, when we're in the thick of it, a lot of times we're like, how could you let this happen to me?
You have no idea.
Right. And it's like, one, this is probably partially happening to you because of like your own, like, there are consequences, you know what I'm saying, to like you not, you know, doing right, being right. But also it's like suffering is a part of the walk. And, you know, we have to learn how to like suffer well and like trust God through that too, you know, not just the good times.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Like you said, a lot of times it do be us suffering because of our own actions and things that we do, but also just testing us to see like, where are you when this happens, right? Like, okay, this is happening. What do you do? How do you react in this moment? Do you pick up your Bible and you come to talk to me and you really look at how I live my life, right? They say the Bible is really like a and bear with me here, I'm trying, but
No,
like it's like a shadow and the reality, right? So like on earth is really the shadow of the reality of the Bible. So anything that we're going through, we can go to the Bible and we can see, okay, this is the steps I'm supposed to take, right? But a lot of times we get rebellious and arrogant and everything but humble, and we like, no, I got this, right? So okay, cool, you got this. Let's see how you handle this. Because if you really knew, you would come to me and I would show you the way, right? But so many times we don't.
Right.
That's crazy though.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love this. I guess like, so what is going on now? Like what's up now?
Like in my life or my music?
Music,
because I feel like we just went real deep.
we did. Like, as far as the music, your life, everything. Like, how, like where are you now in your journey and making the music and your journey with God as well?
Yeah. You know, I'm in a really cool place in my life and with the Lord, and the music is just kind of an extension of it, you know, the reflection of it, I guess. I'm really reflecting right now. Where am I? I'm growing a lot right now. I'm like learning a lot right now. I'm creating a lot right now, having a lot of fun doing it. I'm really, really excited about the music that's going to come out this year. And GPS is just kind of like an intro. Kind of like what you were talking about, just like all of these kind of musical influences and like genres that I love and hold really close in my heart. Like I'm really excited to you know, show people different sides of me creatively this year. I'm really making the music that I feel like sounds like my soul. So that's a huge, huge blessing, and something that I didn't know if I would be able to do. With my journey, I started to kind of wonder, I'm like, dang God, like, am I ever gonna get this out? Like, can I get this out, you know? And I feel like it's gonna start to come out this year. So I'm excited about it.
Oh my gosh. This made me think of a question that I don't know. I'm asking you, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no clue. It seemed like so many, like, again, like history always have a way of repeating itself. And one thing you said that stood out to me that really just hit me was I was making an idol of success.
Yeah.
And like, you know, God says like not to make idols of other things, but so many things we make idols of.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
How do you, because when I'm listening to you, it's like you're so ambitious. How do you continue to be an ambitious person, artist? And we talk about things like the Dove Awards. We talk about like the accolades that come with, or the accolades that we want from our career because we work hard for it.
Yeah.
But not make idol of those things. How do you deal with those two spaces?
I love this question. You know, for me personally, what I can say is that the way that God has positioned me in my life has always required ambition. You know what I'm saying? Things happened and kind of fell into my lap very early on as a little kid, right? That required a certain sense of stick-to-itiveness and faith to kind of to carry, right? And so I'm speaking from my experience, I feel like God allowed all of that on purpose. God is a big God, right? The biggest.
The biggest.
Creator of the universe. God is ambitious. We are his children made in his likeness. So I think that the line between ambition and like idolatry, right, really is found in like your secret place, the time you're spending with the Lord, and really inviting the Holy Spirit into everything that you do so that you can self-check. Be like, wait, am I doing this for pride? Am I doing this for my glory? Am I doing this for my gain? Am I doing it for accolades? Or am I doing this to glorify the Lord? Am I doing this to honor him with the gifts he's given me? Am I doing this to reflect how big my God is and show people how dope my God is? That's the difference. You know what I'm saying? And it's a journey that everybody has to figure out for themselves, right? Because it's not just in like creative spaces. It's like if you work in finance, if you are an attorney, you know, whatever it is that you do, it's like most people want to do it well. I don't think that's inherently wrong, right? But again, it goes back to your heart posture and, you know, am I doing this well to like floss on people or like make somebody else feel bad about where they are? Or am I doing this to glorify my Lord and Savior, you know? So that's something that I think people have to kind of really inspect for themselves and to find that answer for where they lie in it.
Yo, last question before I let you go.
Sure.
The entire purpose of this show is for people to be able to get close to people that they can't get close to on an everyday basics, right? Because we know proximity is everything.
Yeah.
And once your mind like expounds to a place, it's really hard to come back to the place it once was, right?
Yeah.
And it's to really like to hear these conversations and to look at someone and be like, why not me? If they can, I can as well. You just said something like, I'm talking to me. And, you know, everybody else might have an opinion or whatever, but this is for me. And I want you to go back to New York before you came to Atlanta, right?
Okay.
If you could tell that young Lee Vasi something, right, in hopes that it might inspire somebody else that might be going through something similar, but not for them. Like, this is selfish for you. If they get something from it, they get it. But this is selfishly just for you. If you could tell that Lee Vasi something, some advice or word of affirmation or whatever, what would it be?
Man, that girl was struggling. There's a lot of things I would need to sit down with her for like a couple hours. But I think I would tell that era of myself that you are validated in the Lord. Nothing else is going to validate you. Nothing else. Like these things you care about or these things that you're like seeking or that you think are cool to like be cool to other people or whatever else. This is all a trap. And you need to put your value, your view of yourself and that whole people-pleasing thing, work on pleasing Jesus. And you'll be safe. You'll be fulfilled. Just let Jesus validate you and throw literally everything else that you're trying to do away.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much, man. Let Jesus validate you. Lee Vasi, everybody. This is great. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. J Hill Podcast. It's a wrap. We out.